how do you make that something that's not so stressful? That like when this starts happening, okay, what I'm not going to do is think my kids are shitheads, which is hard because it's very frustrating.
So it's like, okay, do I just keep myself calm? And it's like, they're just going to development out of it. I like development as a verb.
Yeah.
They're going to dev out.
Yeah. They'll dev right out of that shit.
They'll dev out of it. Okay, so let's record the intro now.
So what did Milkless? Because I think we start with the name.
Two dads, we love our kids, but then we also need them to know that we're like pretty cool and it's not like a wimpy podcast. So, hey, hey, Milkless.
Hey, welcome. Hey,
Milkless. Call the audience, Milkless. What's up, Milkless? Matt and Max coming at you.
What if that's it? That's our first take.
All right, Matt, here we go. We are back coming at you live via satellite. We got a great topic for you today. This is near and dear to my heart. It's what's happening right now. I am overwhelmed by the possessiveness between my children. I have a 4-year-old, 7-year-old, 9-year-old. It's everything. I want that. It can be a piece of dog shit. And if somebody says, oh, I'm going to pick up this dog shit, the other two will dive at it and be like, no, I want the dog shit. We're going to get into it. We got some studies around us out as we're diving in. How do you want to get into this? Is this happening to you as well? Because this is
holy
my
shit.
life right now.
Let me just say, thank you for bringing this topic because this is hot and fucking heavy in my house. Funny you mentioned dog shit. One of my kids' chores is to feed our dog. And I used to have serious arguments with my oldest daughter when she just didn't want to. She didn't want to. You know what happens every night now? My two kids fight like fucking cats and dogs over who gets to feed our dog. I mean, it's any object in the house that has lain fallow for a decade. As soon as one of them touches it, it's gold. I mean, it's like, it's worth going to war over. It's insane, dude. And it's really hard to be patient with. It's the worst.
At least you have an unbudgeted upside and you don't have to feed the dog anymore. But so maybe there are going to be some positives coming out of this.
I do play them against each other. Unabashedly. Oh, your little sister will do it. Wait.
Oh,
you know,
there's something I found in a New York Times article that is actually quite interesting. It's super profound, the sibling rivalry sort of thing that like the hundreds of years ago when child mortality was much higher, children under 5 with close in age siblings were more likely to die. Okay. Now,
I like this.
The deaths were, the article says that they were likely related to, possibly prevalence of childhood infectious disease, blah, blah, blah. Like there's more germs going around, but also likely lower levels of nutrition, and then also just general competition for your parents' attention. So this is kind of built in. And so if we kind of start thinking about it in that way.
Yeah.
Because I always think that they're being assholes.
They're being assholes. Yeah. Well, that's certainly how it presents. But let me clarify. When I said I like this, I don't necessarily like the idea of children dying.
You heard it here, folks. Matt Naylor. Children used to die a lot back in the day, and if you had a sibling, you died more. Matt, I like that.
On board, in favor. No, the reason that I like it is I think it frames the whole discussion about what's going on with your kids. It puts it in the part of their brain where it's actually happening, which is to say that it seems like they're being assholes, but really somewhere in their little monkey brain, and kids are a lot monkey brain. I mean, adults are a lot monkey brain. There's this great quote from this guy, Richard Reeves, the guy that wrote that book I Like of Boys and Men. He says, we have to remember we are not fallen angels, we are risen apes. Mm-hmm. And our kids, you see that very much in your kids. And so I think that so many of these fights over just dumb fucking useless toys that nobody's played with in a year, what that is actually about is survival, is the fact that when you got a sibling, it used to mean it was more likely your parents were going to let you fucking die.
Totally. With that said, that's going to get into another little study that's going to continue to round us until we're a fucking cue ball. So So this is a study that came out in 2008. But long story short, I'm going to paraphrase it for the listeners and for you. It's basically like if the young adults perceived that there was a difference in how the parents treated or liked them versus their sibling, there was like higher incidence rate of like relationship distress. Mm-hmm. You know, they were just kind of like didn't have like a happy young adulthood. Mm-hmm. And it didn't matter if they were the favor or the unfavored person. Fascinating. But if they felt like, you know, my parents liked me the same as the other kids, then whether you were both of those kids just like were, you know, more healthy, you know, in relationships. So something to keep in mind that like, yes, it's built in, but like everyone knows that feeling where you ebb and flow, where one kid likes you more and is doing whatever you want. The other kid's kind of pushing your buttons a little bit. If we don't check ourselves, we will wreck ourselves and be like, yo, this kid fucking subconsciously.
Go talk to your mother. Well, you know what is hard about that and complicated about that. And I think that maybe I feel it particularly intensely because my kids are 5 years apart. If we take even out of the equation, liking one of them more than the other. And I try very much to stay in that place of like, they're so different. My love for them is like, it's apples and oranges. Like they're such different people. Keep it out of the hierarchy. This is just two totally distinct relationships. But I parent them incredibly differently. Like, of course, my expectations for my 7-year-old are higher than my expectations for my 2-year-old. If my 2-year-old, like, in a moment of impulsiveness, like smacks me, that's a different thing than my 7-year-old smacking me. Now, probably not as different as I make it. I probably expect too much of my 7-year-old at times, and she senses that, I'm sure. But you can't parent your kids the exact same way. Even if they're fucking twins, their temperaments are going to be different. Everybody's got that one kid that like, you can like scream and yell and they're like, meh. And that other kid who's like, if all you have to say is like, maybe next time, and they burst into tears, right?
This is a problem that we're dealing with where the 7 and 9-year-old are older, they are more mature, and they have like picked up on social norms. Like when you get upset, you don't just like throw a tantrum, throw a fit, scream, like yell for stuff, right? You don't do this, you don't do that. So they hold the 4-year-old to a really high standard. And I can hear them kind of like getting on her. Mm-hmm. And then I'll be like, guys, let's chill, blah, blah, blah. Like we got to like have some grace that this is a 4-year-old, like she's working through it. And they're like, what do you mean? Like, and then I'll say, dude, when you were 4, you did the same stuff.
Yeah.
And I had patience for you. Just imagine what that would be like to be the 4-year-old, which you never had. And if I was saying, and I just basically imitate them, that's super scary if I was talking that way. Anyway, so that's like going through some empathy stuff.
There's nothing my oldest hates more than being told that she exhibited the same annoying behaviors as my 2-year-old is currently exhibiting when she was that age. They can't
believe it. They're like,
they can't, yeah. Well, and here's another thing, because I've thought about this too. It is, of course, fair to expect more of your older kids who are just more neurologically developed. They got more years under their belt. It is fair to expect more of them. However, it is not fair to expect my 7-year-old to react to my 2-year-old the same way I do.
True.
Like,
great point.
Nor is that even necessarily the best thing for my 2-year-old. Because I think one of the advantages that my 2-year-old has, being the youngest, is that she grows up with somebody who's really going to shoot her straight. Yeah, like, but
which is what happens on the playground.
Which, yeah, it's like my wife and I will be like, oh, okay, I know that she doesn't have the executive cognitive function to do that, so I'm going to be patient. I'm going to name her feelings. And my 7-year-old should be like, shut up. And like, that's hard to hear. And of course, we want to like coach my 7-year-old on like what's going on with my 2-year-old and why she's acting that way. But it's also, it can't be the goal and is not a fair goal of to expect of your older siblings that they're going to be just as hip to it as you are.
Right. But there's also a fine line between clapping back against shitty behavior if it's occasional. And then sometimes if you have a younger sibling that is like unlearned in the art of social norms. And then we're not getting in to kind of help correct that behavior. 2021 study on family dynamics linked sibling bullying to a lower sense of competence, life satisfaction, self-esteem in young adults.
Oh yeah, you don't want that.
Also being bullied by siblings doubled the risk of depression and self-harm in early adulthood. You know that feeling, we've talked about it on previous episodes, where you're kind of on your kid and you're just like, oh, you're just like on them. Like everything I'm doing, I'm just like, oh, stop. And you really look in the Monday morning quarterback a couple hours later, you're like, man, I was really like waiting for them to fuck up.
Yeah.
Siblings can do that to each other too. And that starts creeping into bullying, where you hear it and it's like, yo, you guys are just all over the little one. Like the little one is and on the whole annoying, but this is not that. We got to just...
And I've seen this with my kids and their cousins, because when they get together, there's a lot of them, and they're all, I mean, they range from like 15 all the way down to 2. And so there's all kinds of different dynamics depending on the configuration. And there's sometimes when I see them being hard on, one or another kid that's just not as far along. And it's not just that like, oh, that feels bullying, but it's actually, oh, the way you guys are responding when this cousin or when one of my kids does something that is annoying to y'all, the way you're responding actually makes it even harder for them to not be annoying. It makes them more annoying. If the second that they do something that is like, not pro-social and doesn't work with the group, if the second they do that, all of you are down their throat, well, then they're going to go into a place where like, they're not going to respond to that by being like, oh, you know what? You guys have a point. I should really handle that differently next time. They're going to be like, fuck you guys.
Right.
And act even worse.
So I'd love to go into specific examples of possessiveness around objects, because that's what I'm struggling with.
Yeah.
Observational studies have shown the sibling conflict can happen up to 8 times an hour. Okay. So this is where this is so important. This happens all the effing time.
8 times an hour sounds right. That feels right.
Right. And so when they're on each other, what's weird is like getting in there, empathizing, doing exactly what you said, explaining that. I've made a lot of headway with the older kids to be able to do that. I celebrate a lot of the wins that they do, like when they don't actually bite each other's heads off and then go to help. Like I make an outsized reaction. For example, our 9-year-old learned how to do Rubik's Cubes, and he's like nasty at math and stuff. So he's doing them like on the TV, like speed cubing. Yeah. And then our 7-year-old like couldn't quite figure it out. And then when the 9-year-old, I'm like, dude, you know that if you taught him that, he's going to remember every time he ever does a cube that you were the one who taught him. So then he does that. And then I start seeing him, we pick up some kids for basketball in the backseat of the car. And now he's like showing all the kids. So all that sort of thing I think is easy-ish to do, to plant that seed. What I still don't know about is this thing about objects.
Yeah.
There's a tape measure on the breakfast bar. It's been sitting there for 4 days. Okay, that's my bad. I should put it away, babe. Sorry.
Sorry, babe. Kid
gets it. And let's say that tape measure or whatever, the slap bracelet, it is the 9-year-old's. 9-year-old says, that's mine, actually. Hasn't been used in 4 days. What do you do there? Because it is the 9-year-old's. It's his slap bracelet. 7-year-old just picked it up. It's been there for 4 fucking days. Let the fucking 7-year-old play with it for a second. But then the 7-year-old goes nonverbal, puts his hand up in the air, and just holds it away. 9-year-old tries to get it. 4-year-old grabs him by the legs to tackle him to the ground. 9-year-old rips it out of 7-year-old's hands. And if 9-year-old had just like not fucking cared. Like, what is the deal?
Yeah. Well, and it's tough because you'll hear the guidance of like, stay out of it. Kids got to work it out themselves. And I believe that up to a point, but the reality is that a 9, a 7, and a 4-year-old have such different levels of capability that like, you don't feel like that's always, and all of them have such a low ability to resolve complex conflict in an equitable way that it's like the idea that the universal solution is just stay out of it and make them figure it out. To me, that doesn't really track. One thing I want to say, because it was, as you were describing it, I was laughing. I was just picturing the scene of like your 4-year-old biting your 7-year-old's ankles while he like, just like stiff arms the 9-year-old, and like, it's an amazing scene. But the first thing is, that makes them sound like assholes. But I've been around your kids, and you have good kids. Those are good kids that love each other.
But I think that's what turns me up is I'm like, I have good kids. What the fuck is wrong with them? You know, that's my internal thought.
Yes, right. You know? So I think I say that to say nothing. Nothing is wrong with them, except that the part of their brain that's going to help them not do that is, for your 9-year-old, still somewhere, depending on who you ask, between like 16 and 21 years from having the brain to to resolve that problem. So they're just not there yet. And I don't think there's like a panacea solve for how you solve that situation. Cause there is always the thing of like, oh, well, technically that's the oldest kids, but the oldest kid has more shit because they've been here longer, and the younger kid just picked it up, and the oldest kid hadn't played with it in 8 months. Possession is 9/10 of the law. When you get into like litigating the justice of this situation, it always feels convoluted and shitty.
I guess the question is like, because I'm a fixer and I'm a solver, and like, for example, I'm trying to teach the Rubik's Cube thing. I think that's something that you can teach, like, you know, valuing teaching others as opposed to talking about why they suck at it, you know, and that's something that he learned very quickly. This I've tried a little bit, but is it just one of those things that, like, you know, our holy Lord Tina Payne Bryson had said, like, she had said,
Tina Payne,
T-Pain. Oh my God.
Oh
God. She is T-Pain.
She's T-Pain. She's the real original T-Pain. She turns down for nothing.
Yeah. So what she said was like, they're just going to development out of it. She didn't use those words, but I like development as a verb.
Yeah.
They're going to dev out.
Yeah.
And it's like,
they'll dev right out of that shit.
They'll dev out of it. And so it's like, okay, do I just keep myself calm? I mean, there's certain things you can do. For example, if someone gives me 2 lollipops and I got 3 kids, I'm either going to hide it from the 3rd kid or throw the 2 away. I'm not
right. Yeah.
I'm not doing that. I'm not playing.
Don't set yourself up to fail. Yeah. Yeah.
But here's another example that happened like 2 days ago. The 7 and 9-year-old were keeping track of how many times they could catch some ball back and forth to each other. They were doing tick marks on a small piece of Post-it note. A 4-year-old, 2 hours later, finds it and like starts to try to draw on it. And the 9-year-old freaks out, is chasing her, borderline in tears. She's messing with my stuff, chasing. She's holding her hand up. I wonder where she learned that. And trying to like keep it away.
So she's just holding it at eye level for the 9-year-old. He's like, I'm gonna fucking smoke you, kid.
He grabs her wrist and then he pulls it out of her hand. She's hysterical crying. He's borderline in tears. I yell at both of them. I have a not ideal moment. I apologize to both of them later. But I yell at the 9-year-old like, was that worth it? Was that worth it? Blah, blah, blah.
Was that worth it is a question we often ask our 7-year-old. Like,
right.
That feel like cost benefit.
I did a little bit of shame in there, which I regret. But the word like, why would you do that? Like, why? Come on.
Yeah.
So, you know, I could have played it better.
Sure.
But then I had a chat with him a couple hours later and I looked at it and all she did was put a couple more tick marks on it. Mm-hmm. So she just wanted to be like the big brothers. Like,
yeah, of
almost
course.
brought a tear to my eye.
Yeah.
And she did this thing where she didn't know what to say because he was like bigger and, you know, kind of like wanting it back. So I talked to him, who's a very empathetic, great young man. And I was like, hey, bud, like, do you see this? She just wanted to be like you guys. Mm-hmm. He's like, yeah, but she's messing with our stuff. I was like, yeah, but she just wanted to be like you. Like, and so I made an analogy where I was like, sometimes, bud, I feel like you're running and you expect to run this way. And maybe your 4-year-old daughter or your 4-year-old sister puts up a brick wall. Mm-hmm. And she shouldn't have taken your thing and she shouldn't have written on it. But because you're right, you run right through a brick wall and hurt yourself and cause a big situation. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now she was the wrong one. She put up the brick wall. Mm-hmm. What can you do with a brick wall? And he's like, you go around it. I'm like, so what would going around it be like? And we figured out that he could have just been like, okay, you can write on it, 4-year-old. Let me see it. Okay, I had 16 tick marks. Cool. Okay, yeah, you write on that. I'll write on this. It's like there's something about young kids to realize like, what are you trying to solve for?
Yeah.
Because they just get into possession. It's like, that's mine. That's wrong.
Yeah. That is one thing that has been helpful with my oldest kid. There's a couple things you said in there that are smart that I've thought about a lot. So one is I've actually found it useful to be able to explain to my oldest kid what's going on with my youngest kid. So my 2-year-old these days is doing a thing that really presents as shitty and really makes you mad. If she does something that sucks, she smacks you in the face, she takes your toy and drops it and breaks it. Mm-hmm. The second you're like, whoa, if she gets any tone of voice from you that like she can tell what she's done upsets you or was frustrating to you, even if it's not like out of control at all, even if I'm kind of responding the way I want to, her move now is to cover both ears. And like when your kids cover their ears when you're trying to talk to them, look, let's just say that there's a reason that I'm pro some kids dying. No, I'm just kidding. But
that
like
kid would not live to be 6.
That kid. So that is admittedly an extremely frustrating behavior. And that sends her older sister through the roof because she does that to her older sister too. Understandably. But one time when my oldest got really pissed, I sat her down and I was like, look, here's what's happening. Here's why she's doing this. She's doing this because she knows what she did upset you and was not the right thing to do. Actually, the reason she's covering her ears is because she is feeling the exact emotion that you're hoping she feels. That's her guilt kicking in. And guilt, when felt like that, when experienced internally, when the person themselves is like, oh shit, I shouldn't have done that. I can see the person is upset. That's a really healthy pro-social thing that's how we all learn to live together, right? Mm-hmm. And I've had to do it over and over, but explaining it to my 7-year-old that way, that, hey, when your little sister covers your ears, it's not that she doesn't care what you're saying. It's actually that she cares so much, she just can't handle it right now. Her little brain is trying to do it herself. And if we heap criticism on top of the guilt she's already feeling, then she's not going to feel it as much. She's going to reject it. She's going to feel shamed. And your kids don't have to be that old. I think even a 5-year-old can understand basic concepts of how a 2-year-old's brain is different than theirs is. The other that I think has really helped is putting it in terms of like, how do you get what you need out of this situation too? And what I mean by that is like, my 7-year-old will do the same thing. When it really goes through the roof and my 2-year-old is taking something that's clearly hers and my 7-year-old's worried she's going to break it and my 2-year-old won't give it back, my 7-year-old will ultimately just go hard in the paint and fucking take it from her because she's bigger.
Yeah.
But what I've tried to talk to her about is like, as soon as you take something out of your hand, you are in a fight. She is screaming at you. She is trying to get it back. You were the same way, by the way. You still are the same way. I work very hard to not take things out of your hand, even if I think that they're maybe dangerous or you're going to break them. Yeah. So it's like, what do you want? You want her to give you that thing back. You grabbing for it, you're in a fight. What's an easier way to get that thing back? What if you say and we've even talked about like first validator feeling. Like, I understand why you want that thing. They're all kind of connected. It's like, here's where your little sister's at. Here's what you want. Here's the way to go about getting what you want and having a fair outcome from somebody who is where your little sister's at. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. It's just so hard because it's going to take, I think, a little bit more work on my part or the parents' part. Like, it's one of those things that you just forget is important. And I'm glad we're doing the episode today. And that's why it's so frustrating.
Yeah. I'm saying these things too. Like, we're in this all the time. Like some of it, I really do think is inevitable. And some of the work for us to maybe not go through the roof is to, of course, address it, but also see it as like normal and not a sign of like some kind of, maladaptation or fundamentally fucked up relationship or anything like that.
This episode is brought to you by the Milkless Patreon. If you want to keep listening, it's only going to cost $79.99 per month. We're going entirely offline, so you can no longer listen unless you pay $79.99 per month. Just kidding, it's fucking free. We're actually losing money on the episodes, but we love doing it for you. All we want is for you to tell a friend. Think about that one friend who listens to podcasts. They told you about serial podcasts. They told you about, and just like, tell them about one.
Yeah.
And it's Milkless.
Just return the favor. The $79.99 does get you feet pics from Max. So if you're into that.
Some of the guidance that I found, one, try to resist comparisons, so where you're pitting the kids against each other. Figure out what sets them off. Like if it's always when they play this one game, maybe you do a little session beforehand and signpost that might be coming. Help them learn to resolve conflict. We've talked about this in the past. I don't do this well. When I do it, I can feel it. But basically be the referee to help them resolve conflict. But a lot of times I'm just the one okay, you do it for 1 minute and then they're going to do a minute. All right, Alexa, set a 1 minute timer. Okay, you do the play with the tape measure, then it's their turn. They're not learning anything with that.
Yeah.
But having them figure it out, how can we work through this? The problem is if one is just screaming bloody murder, that doesn't really fucking work.
Well, yeah, I mean, there are times I will say when I don't immediately meet the situation with what the Instagram doctors might call gentle parenting. If they are all the way up the fucking
I've said stuff like, who gives a shit about the tape measure?
Well, yeah. And sometimes I think you gotta if they're both screaming and hollering, I will the first thing I gotta do is stop. Cause they're not going to be able to do anything. So sometimes my first thing is whoa, stop what you're doing right now. And then you go and you kind of you got to get them back into a place where they can even do anything useful other than just try to grab the thing, So sometimes I come in a little hot. I never want to come in out of control. Of course, sometimes I come in more frustrated than I want to and stuff slips into the shaminess or whatever. But I don't necessarily think you always have to enter the situation with okay, guys, let's remember how. Because sometimes they're just not there.
Totally. Another piece of guidance is praise them in public and punish them in private, which I never do. I'll do it if it's big, if someone's really in trouble. But if you're always disciplining the younger kid, and even if it's calm, okay, we don't do that. You don't jump off the couch, blah, blah, blah. Then I don't know if you get this, but you get your older kids playing parent on the younger kid. And they're just it's yo, you guys should be having fun. It's remember, Dad said don't do this. Don't do that. Don't stop doing that. Stop doing that. But then also, I think the biggest thing is just finding moments where we can all come together. It's something that you've said in the past that they're looking for, secure attachment, or, they're looking to make sure that they're worthy of love, or
I love the voice you put on when you use words like that. It's just vaguely a bitch.
Yeah. Yeah, basically all that stuff. But really it's when they play together and they have their dad cup or their mom cup full,
yeah,
they don't fight as much over these stupid little things. And I've said, yelling at my kids, it's we come from a home with food scarcity.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're what does that mean? What's food scarcity? I'm they literally act like dogs in the street.
Yeah.
A bone falls down out of a restaurant window and they will literally run and dive for something and hit their heads to try to get a snap bracelet that no one's played with in 4 days. I think there's also I read something about toddlers when they start to develop their sense of self, objects become very similar with self. And it's how they sometimes feel that their worth is tied up with their stuffy or their pacifier or whatever.
Just trying to stake some claim in the world too, right?
Yeah.
If you're two and if you're the younger sibling, I think about this for my 2-year-old all the time. She's showing up in a house where my 7-year-old just says so much more shit than she does. She's just been around for 5 more Christmases, It is helpful to look at it through that lens of they are coming from the part of their brain that deals in food scarcity, that deals in the increased likelihood of dying if you have a sibling near the same age. Not that those are accurate, rational reads of the situation, but we do all kinds of stuff that's counter-rational because of our ape-like hardwiring, There's that famous experiment. We did a social media thing about it with the capuchin monkeys. They got 2 monkeys in side-by-side cages. They can see each other. The monkeys have to perform a simple task, and if they perform a simple task, then they get a cucumber, right? And they're giving both the monkeys cucumbers. The monkeys are performing the task. Everybody's happy. And then suddenly they give one monkey a grape, and monkeys like grapes more than cucumbers. I agree with them. I think grapes are nicer. But they give the first monkey the grape, And the monkey's like, great. And then the second monkey performs the task. They give that monkey another cucumber again after it saw the first monkey got a grape. Yeah. And so this second monkey has been happily performing a task and eating cucumbers for the last 30 minutes, gets another cucumber, but having seen the first monkey get a grape, if you find this video, it's fucking hilarious. It reaches through the opening and pegs the scientist in the chest with the cucumber and then has the most recognizable toddler meltdown you've ever seen in a non-human creature. It's just like banging on the glass, shaking the bars. And neither of those monkeys is hungry, right? They're fat on cucumbers. Neither of those monkeys is going to starve. But that idea of fairness is about survival.
Right. So do they need to just dev out, or is there something to do? Because I'm like getting anxiety even thinking about it.
Yeah.
Like it's going to happen today. They're going to get home from school.
Yeah, they are.
And there's going to be something, and then someone's going to want the thing that one of them has. Yeah. And then it's going to be like a fight. And it's like, I'm thinking also maybe we'll have a family meeting tonight and I'll just like explain because it never works in the moment. That's the only time I really want to talk about it. But maybe we do it tonight and I'm just like, guys, let's talk about that dynamic, because I think that there's a way, especially with like intelligent kids who understand big concepts. Let's just talk about it. Like, and they love when I tell them that, like, I feel like crying.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
What? You cry? I'm like, well, no, only It's a Wonderful Life. But I feel like crying. I know that feeling where you're, that feeling in your belly or your chest or your throat. I get that.
Yeah.
So, and that happens when I yell at you guys and I say, who cares about the fucking piece of string?
Yeah.
I rarely do that, but sometimes I throw a little stank on it to let them know that, like, me no happy.
I don't think there's a silver bullet. I think it is all of the above. Yes, they're going to have to dev out of it a little bit. They're going to do this some. I don't think there's any siblings that don't do this some. Because fundamentally, they're competing for their parents' attention too. There's a reality to that my oldest kid doesn't get as big a market share of my wife and my attention as she did before her little sister was born. So some of it I think is inevitable. I think you're right. You talked about the family meeting, just the general idea that most of the things you can do to at least mitigate this, because I do think that's of course possible, are not happening in the moment. They're the things we've been talking about. They're the things like making sure that both of your kids feel your love in abundance.
Yeah. But also I remember this bitch stuff before. I don't like the word bitch, but you said it and I said it again. Wimpy stuff is like,
here's the thing though. Wimpy sounds
sounds wimpy.
It sounds wimpy. Wimpy sounds wimpy. We have all these words that are gendered and so we shouldn't use them anymore, but we don't have replacements for them that have sufficient oomph.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, what I'm saying is I've said this to you before, and then I was like, no, but what if it's just because the marble is cool? Like, I don't think it has to always do with the secure attachment. I think it more has to do with it's like the food scarcity thing. And it's like, that marble is so cool. I need it. And it reminds me of something that I used to call pizza party theory in high school. So I called it pizza party theory. Like, when you showed up at a pizza party and you kind of did some just rough ape math in the back of your head, that it's like, there's not enough pizza here for everybody to have 2 slices. Some people will get 1. You don't eat slow. Okay. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right? And you may take 2 to start. And
sure.
You may eat those 2 fast and have a third.
Yeah.
Okay?
You just might. Yeah.
And you might have a 4th.
Yeah. Get yours.
Yeah. You get caught sleeping, you're not going to get any.
Yeah.
That's like built into humans. But what's weird is like, it'll actually change what they like doing. I've seen a kid doing something that they absolutely love doing. And you see like a kid say, oh, I can't wait to grab that marker. They like telegraph what they're trying to do. Then the kid who's doing the thing that they're happy about grabs that marker just to get it. Well, because it's like, that's valuable to my sibling.
But like,
I need it.
Think of the countless examples of that in the adult world. I mean, when back when you're dating, what's the most surefire way to become more attractive to women? Have a girlfriend, because somebody wants you and you're off the market. So other people suddenly want you. I mean, I think about like
that and a pair of testicles.
Yeah. Jokes,
kidding.
but
That's
perhaps you're right. From the Big Lebowski.
That's in Big Lebowski.
Yeah,
All
and the
right,
response is so good. He's like, joking, but perhaps you're right.
Also, pair of testicles, I think that's I feel like women wish we didn't have them. But anyway.
Yeah, most people
I digress.
do.
I digress. I was digressing. Now I am not digressing.
Nice season 1 callback. But I think of like the whole idea of fucking NFTs is like people are suddenly paying millions of dollars for like a GIF image that is like totally manufactured scarcity where a thing has no worth except the worth that has been assigned to it by some people wanting it and other people not being able to have it. I mean, there's just countless examples of that. Like our brains are wired for that. We gauge the value of things largely
so are you
by
saying it's actually good?
No, I'm not saying
it could be. It could be. You just made a decent pitch for like, look, don't telegraph that you're going to go for the fucking marker, bro. Just go get up and get it. Your brother's going to steal it. Like if you say, I want the blue marker, the one that smells, the scratch and sniff blue marker. It smells like blueberries that everybody loves that no one's played with in 48 hours. The other two are going to get it before you. They're in front of you, bro. It's the same thing in business. You don't like announce your plans in 2025 in Q4. We're going to launch this thing. Please, everyone steal our fucking idea.
Yeah.
So maybe this is like, but it's the fighting. Why is it so grating then?
Well, I think that's part of the work because you were talking about how you're getting anxiety even thinking about having to deal with this. Like there are all these things to try to do to make it less, but I think there is a reality. I mean, there's that other research study they did where they put like 8 kids in a room with 8 identical red balls. Have you heard this one?
Yeah.
And they were all fighting over one of the identical red balls within like 10 minutes. I mean, people are just a little nuts and annoying. And with kids where there's not that like prefrontal cortex to moderate that, it's really on display. So I think part of the work for you is like, how do you make that something that's not so stressful? How do you signpost for yourself that like when this starts happening, okay, what I'm not going to do is think my kids are shitheads. What I'm not going to do is like worry that they won't dev out of this. It's annoying, but it can just be annoying for what it is. And like, how do you take that out of the stress zone for you? Which is hard because it's very frustrating.
It's one of the last, I'm going to use a word I've never used before and don't really know what it means. It's one of the last bastions of, is that a word?
It's a word. Yeah. But finish the sentence.
Okay. It's one of the last bastions of things that like, I will still yell at my kids about.
Yeah.
Like other things, like they're being annoying at bedtime, they're fighting over this, they're fighting over that. Maybe because we've done the work on Milkless, I can kind of see it third person. I can take it and stay calm and be rational. But when it's something that seems so stupid that no one cared about 1 minute ago, and now they're fighting over it, I still snap at them. And I'll be like, guys, what? Why? Come on. And it's just,
yeah,
I need to, I think just be aware. I like the thing about that they die under 5 back in the day. Like, okay, this is.
You like it too. I knew you liked it too. Well, yeah.
I like it for the same, like it makes it like, okay, this is really built in.
Yeah. And that it's survival hardwiring. Bastions. The only thing I'd say is like you had it right, except usually a last bastion is like a last, it's good. It's like the last bastion of great literature or the last bastion of integrity in a thing. But it's like
a holdout.
Yeah, it's more of a holdout, a shitty holdout for, yeah. It's always this funny thing where I'm always trying to balance like consistently going for improvement and trying to make life better. And all of us holding ourselves to a standard that we'd be proud of, while at the same time, just letting it be okay. Like this is going to happen sometimes. You know what I mean? Like you can't expect perfection or you'll constantly be disappointed.
Right. And also just like, I feel like I'm in a very lucky situation. I'm like very close to a stay-at-home dad in the sense that I'm with the kids from the minute they get home from school until like from their perspective, I am a stay-at-home dad. I work while they're at school. Yeah. So they do feel secure attachment. They are like fully loved. Yeah. They love each other. They're playing board games with each other. All 3 of them. They're like, if it was a fucking reality TV show or a sitcom, it'd be like, this is the most well-adjusted, happy family in the world. Yet they still do this fucking crazy shit. Like we are living in an alley and someone dropped a Rubik's Cube down and they've never seen one before. And if you don't touch it, you're dead.
Yeah. It's nuts. And I think two last things are on my mind. One is, I do think it's interesting. You hear that term secure attachment a lot, and I see why you give it like the voice, like because I think it gets lumped into that whole gentle parenting thing. Secure attachment actually means something very specific that is not soft. It is the idea that if you feel totally safe and secure in your attachment to the people that take care of you, you spend more, the part of your brain that is able to think about the future and think about your relationships with other people and make good pro-social decisions. That's the part of your brain you live in. And if you don't feel safe and secure, then you live in the part of your brain that's about survival, that doesn't do long-term thinking, doesn't do future planning, and also can only kind of do me thinking. It doesn't do like us thinking. And the reason that that's important is that there's just immense amounts of data that prove that people who, the more securely attached you are, the more likely you are to have good friendships, have a good marriage, have a good family, make more money, be more successful, live longer, be more physically healthy, have fewer autoimmune diseases.
Totally.
So it's like,
it's just the branding is fucking
the branding
shit.
fucking
Like,
sucks. But
it's just like, do you feel safe in your position in the world with your relationships with your parents, with your life? Are you safe?
Yes.
Can you venture out mentally and expend energy in thinking about the future, progress, growth mindset?
100%.
Or are you scared?
The like fundamental concept of it is like the first model that a kid has of their relationship to the world and other people in the world is the relationship they have with their parents.
Yeah.
That's like all it means.
Totally.
The second thought I had, and this is another idea, and with all of these things, whether it's secure attachment or trying to teach them like to meet their younger sibling where they're at or whatever, with all of these things, it's not like you're going to do this and then it's going to be solved. They're going to keep fucking doing this thing because people are people and adults do this, and we value the things that other people value. We're incredibly susceptible to the opinions of the people around us. Mm-hmm. I heard this quote, and I can't remember who said it, but I fucking love it, that like so many of the world's problems and so much of people's angst stems from the mistaken belief that life should be fair. Mm-hmm. One of the practices that I've started is trying to point out to my kids when something probably feels unfair to the other one. Because everybody knows when something feels unfair to them. My 7-year-old knows when it feels unfair because I get on her about something that I wouldn't get on my 2-year-old about. Yeah. So what I have tried to do, my 7-year-old got a new bike, and she and I have been riding bikes up and down the street, which is a blast. So fun riding a bike with your kid. And my 2-year-old will bring her little bitty like scoot bike out into the street. And I try to include her, but mostly it's just my wife walking alongside my 2-year-old while my 7-year-old and I just blow past her and say hi, going 10 times faster than she could ever imagine. And she's like calling to us from behind. There's just no way to handle that situation perfectly. Because she always, of course, wants to come out and ride bikes when my older kid and I do. Yeah. But what I've tried to do is in those moments say to my 7-year-old, this is probably a moment that sucks for your little sister. This is a moment that does not feel fair to her. So try to remember in one of those moments when it really doesn't feel fair to you.
Soak it up.
Yeah, soak it up. But try to remember that life is not fair in every single moment. That there are going to be moments that feel unfair to you. There are going to be moments that feel unfair to her. Really, and we're not going to be the same parents to the both of you because you're just in a different place in your life.
Yeah, totally.
All right, brother. Well, good talk. Thanks for pulling up all that research. That's cool shit. I'm glad all those kids died.
Yeah.